Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us again for another episode of the Church Communications Podcast. I'm your host, Daryl Girardier, and always with me, you know what? With me today is Katie Allred. Hey, folks, we are partnering with National Back to Church Sunday and Outreach to offer you some free resources to help kickstart your fall outreach. Churches who participated last year experienced a 25% attendance increase on Back to Church Sunday, and 87% said that having a special day motivated their members to invite friends and family. If you participate in this offer, you'll get 500 free Engager invitations mailed to you that's included shipping, plus a ton of extras and digital download packages. Visit churchcommunications.com/back-to-church. That's churchcommunications.com/back-to-church. Get signed up now while supplies last. So if you want to jump in and participate in National Back to Church Sunday Outreach is partnering with us, we definitely think you should check it out at churchcommunications.com/back-to-church. Katie, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. So let's talk about baptism, Troughs.
I believe that it's the future. I believe that
like the children.
Yes, I believe, yes, as Whitney said, children of the future, and I believe baptism troughs are. I think one, let's be honest, let's talk about outreach. I mean, that sucker can go anywhere. Throw it on the back of a pickup truck and boom, we're calling it baptism on the go. Which is
back to church baptisms, you know.
Why didn't I not buy baptismsonthego.com? That would have been so much more catchier.
You need it too. Like we are a gold mine of stuff that you could potentially, you know.
Yeah, and I'm sure somebody's out there like, why can't you just do it on Oculus and just like have a VR baptism? But I'm like, no, I want the real thing. I want people to get wet.
People do that, but
do they really?
Yeah. DJ did one like a month ago, the first VR baptism ever. Yeah. So the lady had a disability which would stop her from actually getting baptized. Yeah. And so she always felt like she would love to be baptized, but was not physically capable of actually doing it. So anyway, so it was like a really special thing because obviously she had always wanted to be baptized and then she was able to be, but in VR. So
yeah, and you know we in all sincerity, I actually said it on a different post. I commented actually on your post that you mentioned at first. We actually really do use horse troughs. We actually bought. I think we have like 3 horse troughs. I think at the church.
We have a lot of horse troughs. So we also have those kind that are fancy that people can roll around. I don't know, in your church.
We do.
We have a lot of different baptism, areas.
We have like an official portable one that you probably bought from a company that does like portable ones, and then we just have a straight up horse trough that we've actually used in our worship center. So
we just want you to know we take baptism seriously. We aren't kidding around about it, but this is not the correct group to buy such things. No. But now we own, however, now we do own the domain name. So maybe we are the correct group. Maybe I just found out we were a niche that I didn't know that we were.
I'm just telling you, I think there's always,
room to grow.
There's always room to grow. Always, I like to say we need to think outside the trough, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, so, thinking outside the trough.
That's the name of my new blog and my biography. Yeah, so there we go. So Katie, we got some stories today. We got some stuff to talk about.
Yeah, let's talk about the news. So
yes.
Instagram introduced the question sticker, which I used actually earlier just today. I haven't gotten any questions yet, but I also haven't checked since I posted it.
Okay. So kind of walk people through, people who have not opened up their Instagram today, or maybe I'm not sure if this thing was rolled out, user wide for all you. Yeah, walk people through what this is.
So essentially, you know how you can put stickers on anything. Yeah, it's basically, how you put a GIF, how you put whatever.
Right.
So there's now this new option. It just says questions. And so basically in that question spot, you can ask people, you can just say, ask me questions. So people can ask you questions and then you can respond to them. This is not anonymous. So don't think of this as that Sarah Lala thing that was going on. Do you remember that? Like that happened like a year ago?
Okay.
There was like this anonymous question thing.
Yeah.
Which was great, but like this is not anonymous as far as I can tell. You can tell who sent the question in.
Okay.
So, but you do not see, like when they post it, a lot of times it won't post to say who asked that question.
Oh, really?
So, I think you would have to like do an extra step of actually tagging them or something. So I don't think it does that. So that's kind of interesting. But This is what I know about the question sticker as of today, and it's less than 24-hour launch.
Yeah.
I could have learned more if I was at Facebook right now, and I didn't know that I could be, but it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a little bit like so you can basically convert this into like an AMA, if you will, right?
Yes.
Okay, but I mean AMA, folks, that's just saying ask me anything. So, I mean, I think obvious quick implications are your pastor totally could use this, right? And just like throw this up there, just go for it and get asked questions.
Right.
You know, however, there is no content control. Is that what I hear you saying in terms of like you can't control? Yeah, so you are opening yourself up to trolls or whatever else is out there.
Right. Yeah, you are.
Okay.
So I mean, unless your profile is private, but who does that?
Yeah,
It's so hard. It's so weird. So like Instagram, you have two options. You got private and public.
Yeah.
Where on Facebook, you have had actually for a long time the ability to control who sees your content.
Right.
I know people love to dog on Facebook and be like, you have no privacy ever. But that's actually not true. You've actually got a lot of tools in your resource belt to filter who sees your content.
Yeah, we were talking about this today when we were doing a brainstorm for a fall series, and one of the things we talked about was I said, guys, we were talking about where to source when people react to the sermon series, and we want to get some of the people's reactions and then curate that content and repurpose it. I was like, guys, Instagram is going to be so much easier to do that because whatever hashtag we come up with, we can track the hashtag, and majority of people's profiles are public, so we can just grab that content and go, just go off of that. I was like, with Facebook, it's so because there's so many little security nuances. Tracking that is going to be a lot more difficult, and in some ways, it's almost a little futile in my mind. Sometimes I kind of try to source that content from Facebook unless people are commenting on a post. Yeah. But like to go to somebody's profile, if they use the status update and they use the hashtag, but they've got some sort of security setting set to where, only friends of friends, whatever that is, it can become really tedious.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So anyway, I agree with you. I think, in fact, we've got an article coming up talking about some of the limitations and some of the on social media channels in terms of growth and where some of the experts see growth coming. So, yeah. So
yes,
I definitely agree with that. Alrighty, on to story number 2.
I figure I'll let you do it because you love this stuff.
I love this stuff. We don't talk about hardware a whole lot here, partly because I think for all of us we're on tight budgets, and so it's not like we got a lot of money spent on hardware. Software obviously is a little bit different. I
got money just like going like this.
Yes,
I don't know what you're talking about. Apparently, I really do though. That's why somebody loves.
Money makes Allred over there.
Yes.
She comes to work with a monocle and a top hat, by the way.
Do you see this room is lavishly decorated with the 4 books in the corner?
She comes dressed like the character from Monopoly.
Actually, I wore this shirt about pizza today. I bought it for $1 at Bargain Hunt. It says, "You've stolen a piece of my heart."
Yes, folks, if you think Katie this is the girl who shops for cheap stuff on Alibaba, okay? So
yeah, I'm obviously rolling in the dough.
Yes.
Anyway.
So it looks like for those of you who are into Macs and Apple and probably are looking at your computer and going, I need a budget. Most of us are right now probably in the budgeting process, budgeting for 2019. And maybe you may be blessed with somebody saying, by the way, you can upgrade your computer. We've got great news. It looks like the people over at Apple are going to refresh and upgrade majority of the Mac lineup this fall, including, wait for it, the Mac Mini, which I can't remember the last time that thing was ever upgraded. Yeah, so it looks like we're going to be getting possibly 3 new iPhones, new MacBook Pro, new iMac, and a new Mac Mini, which I love the Mac Mini because you can use, a whole bunch of different peripherals with it, and just, you just get the Apple, but you can use a Dell monitor and, whatever keyboard you want. MacBook Air, new iPads, and new Apple Watch. But for me, obviously, the main focus for me is the MacBooks and the Macs.
Yeah, I really need a new MacBook Pro. We talked about that on the podcast last week. I don't have one with like a USB 3.0 apparently, so I can't use the new camera that we bought.
Yeah. Nope.
Yeah, right. Like, what's the point of having money? I'm just kidding. I don't have any, so I have to wait like a few months. Anyway,
Yeah.
So I'm excited though about the. I'm just hoping like for something more drastic than a stupid touch bar. I just felt like the touch bar was just silly.
I have the touch bar. I never use it, and in fact, it annoys me because when I accidentally touch it, I'm really mad. I'm like going, why? The problem was they didn't have a 15-inch option without the touch bar. If I remember correctly, it was only 13, and I'm just mad at that. So, however, I am excited for, especially like for those of you who are looking to replace your media machines inside your worship center. Now you're going to have, now that they're refreshing everything, in my mind, you're going to have a more wide range in terms of price points for you to work off of to possibly get something that can maybe fit your budget, which I think is obviously great. And
I think the Mac Mini would probably be great for worship.
Well, yeah, you and I used to work for a company that, when we were at camps, that we used to run stuff off the Mac Minis. We used to edit off the Mac Minis because the fact they were at that time they were like, we could get one for like $500, I think was what it was. We just put the dumb monitor in, and it was like a great video editing machine for that. So anyway, so if you're into that kind of stuff, look out. Looks like this fall, maybe September, October, we're going to be getting some new Macs.
Yeah. Moving
on, story number 3.
How social media professionals can combat burnout at every career stage. You should have sent me this I
totally should have like 90 days ago.
A few days ago.
Yes.
Kidding. So yeah, this is interesting. I'm gonna guess that you've read it.
Yeah, I did. So basically what it is, they break down everything in 3 segments: 1 to 3 years, 4 to 6 years, and then 7 to 9 years, and then 10 years on. And what it does is basically it walks you through what are the key things during that time of your career you're going to be dealing with, and how do you combat if you can learn how to combat that thing, you can learn how to basically avoid the burnout. So from 1 to 3 years, they say basically define your content's purpose. So basically in my mind, I like to say, think of it like really learn your voice, define like what value actually really means for your reader. Like early in your career, understand how to develop that skill set and learn that skill set, because otherwise you end up pumping out just random content over time and then you get burned out. 4 to 6 years, they say in your career, you need to start learning on how to identify what really is a crisis and what really is not a crisis. Because you're young in your career, you kind of seem to think everything's on fire, and you're not mature enough to realize that thing over there that everybody's panicking about, it's going to blow over. Which I can completely attest to when I took over some accounts at first, thinking, oh my gosh, that's really an issue. And then realizing 48 hours later, it was not an issue at all.
Yeah, I think that happened with us when we were planning a new church in a new city, and a ton of people commented and said, why would you need a church in the city? There are plenty of other churches.
Yes.
And immediately we got a lot of flack, a lot of comments that were just crazy. And I was just gonna delete them all or just let it be, but then I was like, I probably should bring this up to people, so that's why I told Daryl. And then we brought it up to more superiors, just what do we do in this situation? And we just let it be.
Yeah, we did.
And that was good. I think that was also a good learning experience, though, for everyone who hadn't been experiencing digital with what exactly is a crisis. Because to me, I was like, it's probably going to blow over, but I can understand where some people might think, oh, that's terrible. We got to do some hard PR now or something.
Yeah, and I think what I've learned is that what you're going to find is as you become more mature in this, because you deal with it on a daily basis, you're going to have a better radar for that. And I find sometimes my job is sometimes to calm the people above me down. The people above me kind of panic and go, oh my gosh, what do we do about this? I saw this on Twitter. I'm like, just take a deep breath. We're going to be fine. Hey, if it's still a problem, 72 hours, then we'll address it. And that's, and going back to the church plant, that's what we had to do in that case. The next one they say is when 7 to 9 years in your career, you need to start thinking like a journalist. So in other words, you already know how to create content. You've already know how to identify and understand what crises are. And you know how to move beyond vanity metrics. So that's the point in your career where you really start to really kind of think about different angles you can take content. You can start, you start thinking in a really different way. And part of it is you now have experience to lean off of. And then last but not least, 10 years and plus, if you're running into burnout, find ways to take your content to, they say, the cutting edge. I say what I would do is this, is I think if you're 10 plus years into it, is you may be in the stage of your career where you may not be the person who is creating new ideas. You may be the person funding new ideas, and you may need to surround yourself with people who are younger with the new ideas. I think somebody said one time that you're going to reach a certain point in your career that you're going to realize that you're not the new idea person anymore. So you have two things you can do with new ideas. You can either fight them or you can fund them. Yeah. And you definitely want to be somebody who funds them. And so I think to avoid burnout, you want to be somebody who funds the new, and I say fund, there's necessarily money. It could be with your actual, like your personal capital that you invested inside the organization, inside your church.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, it's a good article, good read, especially for those of you who think, man, maybe I need to get out of church work. Give it a read. You may find, I think, some truth in there that you can pull out and use for yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, last story. This actually comes from Recode, which if you don't listen to the Recode podcast, they're really good. It's Kara Swisher, who used to be over at Wall Street Journal, does it. And this is an article highlighting a podcast they did with Eugene Wei. And this says, these are the invisible challenges that make it harder for Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter to grow. So if you don't know who Eugene Wei is a former Amazon employee. He was also head of product for Flipboard. He's worked at pretty much every startup you can think of. And he has this this is the podcast, but then they have actual link to his actual article he wrote, which is really long. He writes his blog is super long. But what he does, it's really great because he walks through every single one of the social media platforms and he tells you where they're going to hit a glass ceiling and when they're going to stop growing and why that is. So he walks you through Facebook's problem, Twitter's problem, Snapchat's problem, Instagram. And the only one that he says, and he says in the podcast, the only one that he can tell you he can't figure out how they're going to eventually be slow down in growth is Instagram. So kind of what he's doing is predicting that all the other platforms are going to slowly, if they haven't just kind of flatline, and Instagram's just going to keep going like this. Because he says right now, because of the way we're wired in terms of being visual people, and Instagram's ability to do stories and various ways of doing the feed, that he says basically don't look for them to slow down anytime soon. That their growth is just going to continue to rocket all the way up. And so anyway, it's a long read, but it's a really good read. And he also does a great job of framing. Somebody who used to be a former product manager for Amazon S3, so he knows all about that world. He's really good at framing how these networks are really supposed to be used, and it's a weekend, is what we call a weekend read. You're on the couch. Yeah,
it's a lengthy read. I'm reading it now, and I'm like, wow, yeah, this has got a lot of stuff in it. It's good though. It's a lot of good stuff. Like I can tell. I'm like, oh wow, yeah, that's.
The guy knows it. He knows his stuff, and so it's.
I like how he included Amazon in this.
Yes,
like it's really random to include Amazon with these other social companies.
Yeah, exactly. Patrick asked. Yes, we're gonna put this. We'll put this in the show notes on the website and on the podcast feed. But his name is EugeneWei.com. I think it's if you go to the website there. It's
Wei is WEI.
Yeah. And so anyway, just really good. I read it, and you actually probably go listen to the podcast because that kind of gives you a brief an overview of it. So the guy's super smart, and that was good stuff. So there you go. Definitely worth checking out. So there we go. So those are our 4 stories we got for today. Katie, do you have some stuff that you would like to lift up?
I want to lift up a book that I haven't read yet. I'm going to read. I just actually watched the promotional video for it. So look up the promotional video for it on YouTube, or maybe we can embed it in the notes. And it's called The Gospel Comes with a House Key, Practicing Radically Ordinary Hospitality in Our Post-Christian World. And it's by Rosario Butterfield. And I don't know if any of y'all have read Rosario. Have you ever read? Do you know any of her
I know stories? The name. How do I know the name?
She wrote her first book was an unlikely convert. Yeah, that was it. And she was a feminist, lesbian professor at Syracuse University.
Yes.
And then through the hospitality of a pastor who reached out to her after she basically just wrote this article for a local paper and said, like, why are the right-wing evangelical Christians so hateful, and like, why do they use the Bible against I don't know, love and stuff like that? And he reached out to her in a very just like an open letter, like, hey, I'd love to have you over for dinner, like we could talk about these kind of things. And anyways, through this relationship of having these dinners where he never actually like invited her to church, but through these dinners she started and through just questioning the Bible and reading the Bible together with him, she started to really fall in love with Jesus, and it radically changed her whole life. And so it's just, I don't know, it's really interesting. It was just really interesting to read. But the idea of hospitality being obviously evangelism, which it is, I think we have to kind of get back to that. So it's just like an interesting read about hospitality.
Awesome. Speaking of which, I totally skipped over a show question. I hate when I do that. Patrick asked the question real quick, Katie, and I think it's kind of based off your evangelism, so this is a kind of a decent segue. Patrick asked the question, our staff is active on the personal social media, but how do I get the message through to them to engage on the church's social media? Instagram is where we aren't growing. So
I would tell them to. That's always helpful. If you haven't, like, you can't just assume that they're going to do it. So in the past, I have sent out a list of links to social media posts and said, hey, can you share? Can you like? Can you whatever? And that's been okay. I think honestly, where you should care more is in their actual personal social media, not just on the churches. And so they should be talking about the church, regardless of if they're tagging it or checking in there. They should be talking about what's going on at the church and what's going on in their personal lives and their personal walks with Jesus, even more so. And then through those relationships can share the love of Christ and invite somebody to church.
Yeah. And I'm going to make an assumption, Patrick, a couple of things. I'm going to make an assumption. I'm doing a bit of a group think here. I'm going to make an assumption that your audience is your staff older is what I'm going to assume for a second. And the reason I say that is I find staff that are older, for some reason, have this they have a very much a clean line between their personal social media and the church and their church. And they view the church social media as like work, and they don't want to. And so, whereas the younger staff that we work with, I don't think we deal with that nearly as much. I think they have no problem kind of intermingling the two. You know, the words like those worlds, they kind of dive in and out of the world. And so I feel like, in other words, our student ministers, for example, they've got no problem doing that. They will repost, go in, they'll dive in between the accounts all the time. Versus some of our adult ministers seem to really be like, they've got their own personal stuff and the church stuff kind of just sits over on the side. Yeah. So anyway, he says millennial except for the pastor. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, that's unique then. Well, you know what, Patrick? The question you may want to ask yourself is are you creating content do they think the content's worth sharing? Now that may be a hard question because I may be questioning the content you're creating, and that's not my intention. But I'm wondering if you need to figure out whether or not that's content that they think is worth sharing. I don't know. So, all right, my lift up I've got is Uber has a actual website dedicated to design. It's actually they're behind the scenes of all their design. It's uber.design. And it's basically all these blog posts that kind of walk you through why they make design decisions the way they do, how they visualize things, how they do icons, graphics, the whole 9 yards.
That's really interesting.
It's a whole bunch of case studies about how they do it. And then they even have posted some of the internal people they bring in to give talks at Uber about, about their actual about the actual brand. So if you go to their website, and it will post it's uber.design, but they have a thing called events. If you look up at the top, and events, they're just videos. You can watch videos of them talking about designing for the real world, designing trends, whole bunch of stuff like everything like crazy stuff like self-driving cars, which but the other thing is like Uber presents House Industries, which is like one of my favorite typography places in the world. So if you like typography, like fonts, it's really great. So it's this whole like really just cool stuff. So if you want to kind of get a different design aesthetic, you want to look at some stuff and hear a design team's process, it's worth checking out. So it's uber.design. So there we go.
This whole thing on the accessible by design, building bridges and communication on this Uber site is is uber interesting. It's just talking about like how deaf Uber drivers can use the app. Like they've built in all these things that like can tell people that they're deaf and all sorts of stuff. That's really neat. I'm pro more accessibility on the web, so.
Yeah, and they definitely, and I mean, we deal with that because, you know, we have a deaf congregation at our church. So we deal with some of those issues and trying to figure some of that stuff out. So there you go. Well, folks, thanks again for listening for this episode from Katie and I. I want to say thank you. If you are watching this episode on Facebook, hit the like or share button. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. And if you're listening on iTunes, please give us a rating and, you know what, share with a friend. You know, someone you love or maybe someone you don't. Who knows? Anyway. We hope you guys have a great week, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye.